Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Motive, Social Motivation for the Creative Class. I'm your host, Tim Fulton, here with head fryer, owner, co-founder of Hot Chicken Takeover, a Columbus phenomenon. I have referred in the past to the meteoric rise from a window to the only business on the second floor of the North Market. Is that true?
Yes.
Other than the North Market. Recent featured guest on Rachel Ray. Woot. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joe DeLoss, please welcome him. I think we should start in the appropriate place. Can you talk about how you, what your background is and how you came to fried chicken?
Sure. So Hot Chicken Takeover is a fried chicken restaurant. I really had no interest in fried chicken for some time, but what led me to this ultimately was I had always volunteered a lot in my life, and at some point, my sophomore year of school locally here at Capital University, I got really frustrated with volunteering, and ultimately it boiled down to the fact that I could serve soup every day, for the rest of my college career. I could drop out of college and keep serving soup, and the line would never get shorter, And so I was idealistic and young and thought I could take on the world, and so I really set out to think differently about the way we could affect community change, and so I wouldn't have to volunteer anymore, basically. And so I set out on this course of understanding all the mechanics of business and the things that I started to fall in love with at school, and then also starting to get a much better perspective on what these issues affecting our community really were and how they impacted me, a very middle-class, two-parent home, suburban kid that didn't have a lot of exposure to those things. And so fast forward, had my hand in a couple of different attempts. There's a business locally I started called Freshbox Catering, which I created for Lutheran Social Services of Central Ohio. That business is still up and running, and it provides boxed lunches to adults impacted by homelessness that are living at that point at Faith Mission Homeless Shelter. And we served lunches to a whole bunch of accountants and investment bankers downtown, which was great for a little while, and just decided after a few years that I wanted to go off on my own and keep trying things. And so I've been failing fast and creating new things since then, and here we are.
Talk specifically about how Hot Chicken Takeover, minus the socially conscious aspect of it, how Hot Chicken Takeover got started.
Yeah, so my wife and I took a trip down to Nashville. We were expecting our daughter, and we were at about 7-month mark. And so we had to drive somewhere. We couldn't fly anywhere. And we went to Nashville and had this thing called hot chicken for the first time. How many people have ever had hot chicken? Not just from us, but hot chicken in general. That's a bad number. You should eat hot chicken. So if you haven't
Sorry,
been
one
exposed,
second. How many people here have had hot chicken from Hot Chicken Takeover? See,
that's a better number.
That's a better number.
Thanks for making me feel better. So hot chicken is a little different than conventionally fried chicken. What we do is we brine chicken for about 20 hours. We double deep fry it, and then we rub it with a spicy cayenne pepper paste. And so that cayenne pepper paste is the hallmark of hot chicken. Everybody gets to the point that they apply a cayenne pepper paste, in Nashville differently. That's the way we do it. After you get that spicy paste rubbed over it, you serve it on enriched white bread, which is enriched for nutritional value, I think. And you serve
it's special.
Yeah. And we have a really local, great bread company that makes all of our bread for us called Schwabel's. But anyways, it's delicious. Love them. Love Pabst. Love Schwabel's. So you get to this point, and what it does ultimately is it hits a little more savory. So it sticks on your lips for a little while longer. A buffalo wing or some nonsense like that has sugar and butter in it. And so it's just different. But hot chicken is unbelievable, and we got hooked.
Hot chicken was not the point. The point was the socially conscious sort of employment model. Talk about what that is, sort of what people don't know about when they come there for the first time.
Yeah. So we got, in this kind of rapid 8 to 10 year adventure of entrepreneurship that I've been on, I got really captivated with providing jobs to people that need a second chance at work. And so right now, Hot Chicken Takeover targets candidates for employment that have been impacted by incarceration or homelessness. And so it amounts for about 60% of our workforce. Ultimately, we do one favor for people, and that favor is that we judge them by their future, not by their past. And that's kind of where the favors stop. You know, at that point, it's just about... I think there are social entrepreneurs in the audience that get that.
You think?
So at that point, people get to be judged by their work capacity, their aptitude, their hustle, their spirit. And the reality is, for many people that have been kind of living off of the social service cycle, they lose a lot of dignity because they always have to have their hand out. Or they go to JFS and they wait in a 6-hour line to get benefit. And so we have a different mentality, which is that you can provide for yourself, that you're capable, you're a problem solver, all of the things we know they are. And we just provide a foundation for that. And so it's been a pretty unbelievable workforce. We have about 40 people now. We've retained probably 60% of our staff since we opened, so it's a great, it's a big number.
Can you talk about that in relationship to what another business your size or another business in the industry might have?
Yeah. So if you've worked, has anybody worked food service before? Yep. So it generally sucks. And one of the reasons it sucks so bad is that your leadership turnover, your peers turnover, and there's no consistency. Your customers generally feel that. And so the going rate for turnover is around 120 to 150%, depending on who you talk to in the industry. So this means for every job that they have, every position they need filled, they'll fill that position over 2 times with 2 different bodies a year. And so if you're doing the math, think about the HR costs associated with that. It's crazy. So we've retained 60%. Most employers, if they talked about their retention, it would have to be a negative number. And so we believe not only are we creating a great work culture focused around personal development, but the reality is we're solving an economic problem in a different way. And that's why I think more employers should do what we do.
Can you talk a little bit about what that work culture is and what's sort of different there given the workforce that you have?
So again, it's not about, we don't ostracize a workforce between kind of a mission employee and a non-mission employee. We have a blended workforce that's 60-40 with people that might have a criminal record or have been in and out of a homeless shelter. So the intent with that is to not make people feel like the other, but rather that you're part of a team where our core focus is personal development. So if you've ever worked at a bad job, it's generally because your leadership doesn't care about you. We try to change that a little bit, and what we do, we have a series of unconventional benefits that we invest in our workforce to make sure they can grow the way they want to grow, and their goals, not ours. We're not in charge. We're not dragging anybody out of the criminal justice system or out of a shelter. It's just not our place. It's theirs, and if they do it that way, they're a lot more proud and a lot more disruptive in the marketplace from a work perspective too.
Joe, what are the unique ways that you support your employees in order to ensure their success?
Here's some context before I answer. And generally it's that if you are working for an entry-level wage, our assumption is that there's probably a lot of instability at home. For one reason or another, if you're working for $9 to $13 an hour or minimum wage to $13 an hour, the reality is there's a lot of turnover in those jobs because people are suffering from a lot of personal instability at home. So there's 2 categories of people that do that, either college kids who generally have a good resource network or those that are suffering from some version of this instability associated with the cycle of poverty. So we have 3 categories of benefits. The first is around financial stability. The second is personal development, personal stability. And the third is just professional development, which is not that uncommon for a lot of work environments. The first, financial stability, is a huge amount of research that I'm not sharp enough to read and comprehend, but basically suggesting that if somebody is financially unstable, it causes a slew of crises that will spin them out of control. So what we do is try to help our employees divert from participating in those predatory lenders. So drive down South Parsons, it's pawn shops, buy here, pay here car lots, payday lenders, et cetera. There's probably 20 predatory businesses within a 2-mile stretch of street. It's crazy. So the way we do that is we have match savings accounts, we have cash advances at 0% interest for short periods of time, things like that, just to divert them from enjoying those, or not enjoying, but getting screwed by those predatory, practices. The second piece of personal stability is just about emotional and physical wellness, and so whether that's access to a counselor we have on retainer, a confidential counselor, things like that, benefits for smoking cessation, whatever it is, just so that people, as they increasingly gain stability and increasingly gain just the privilege about thinking about what's next for them, not what's in an hour for them, out of a survival mentality, we get to provide a really great foundation for them and encourage them to think about that. And professional development's just around credentialing. So food safety, ServSafe certifications, anything else that raises the collective bar of their resume in our industry. And if they're not interested in growing in our industry long term, we make sure that they have another pursuit or growth plan that they can continue focusing on.
And you were talking about how currently you think your workforce is at 60-40 in terms of whether they've been affected by homelessness or incarceration and not. Would you say that you seek those people out? How do those people join your workforce? Is it important to you to maintain that ratio?
Our goal is to always maintain over a 50% blend. And so that's a target we've set for ourselves, and we're able to maintain that based on relationships with a lot of community agencies. So we get a slew of agencies that are sending us referrals. And this, again, is not about charity or sympathy. And so we've had to correct a couple agencies that just kind of throw everything at us and see what sticks. Unfortunately, that's really difficult for us to maintain. And so what we end up doing is putting those agencies on the back burner to make sure that we open up those that are giving us appropriate referrals. It's a good accountability we can have.
And I imagine you're simply talking about people that have the capacity to work and not simply, because a social service agency is going to get everybody, and they're just going to give you every name, and you're like, well, that's not helpful. These are people that can't come here and can't work.
Yeah, that's part of it. We vet people for coachability, and kind of that humility that it takes to take hard feedback and hustle. We work in a very tough environment, and we serve, some days we'll serve 700 to 800 meals in the course of 3 hours. And so that's like a McDonald's on the busiest intersection of a city, kind of busy. And so to have a team of people that can keep up with that pace and keep communication effective and everything like that is not easy to come by. And so we have to develop that workforce. And this goes back to not wanting to make our staff feel like the sick puppies in a bad Sarah McLachlan SPCA commercial, because people are not sick puppies and they deserve a lot better. And so this is a point of pride for our people too, and that they know they earn their job, that it wasn't given to them.
And I actually didn't know about your model. I didn't know about your employment model before we started talking about having you here for Motive. And we had talked about it ahead of time, and I said, why don't, there are other businesses in town that I'm aware of, Clean Turn and Clean Turn and She Has a Name, which are fantastic organizations, but that is the first message there of this is a socially conscious organization, but I would venture to say 95% of the people that come through Hot Chicken don't know that it is created as a socially conscious organization. Why not? Why isn't that a sales tool?
It is to some degree, but we all have different styles at how we approach this. We happen to be in a business-to-consumer industry where people are so excited about our food that we don't have to lead with it. And we'll see as the business matures how we have to change that conversation. For us right now, we treat it as kind of a second or third date conversation. We want to make sure that people are connected to the work we do, that they value their experience and their service at Hot Chicken, and that they don't come in with sympathetic eyes. And so what ends up happening is that second time they're back, one of our hosts will greet them in the line and ultimately acknowledge, oh, you've been here before? Did you know? And go into this kind of conversation in their own words about what we do. And so it solidifies it, I think, in a different way, and we think about it as kind of a cherry on top of a really great sundae.
You referred to it as a second date conversation.
Yes.
Go on. I'm sorry,
So
were you
on your
saving?
on your first date with somebody, you're just interested, you're interested in a lot, I'm sure.
It's all about the meat, that
It's
first
all about
date.
the meat. So on that first date, our goal is to prove to people that we have a great product and a great service model. And so that's where the hook is. The moment you integrate, if it's somebody that doesn't like our product, we don't want them to keep coming back out of pity. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help our employees. So our intent is to have them come back and have enjoyed the experience and then start building loyalty. And so somehow this equates to that second date where you just get a little deeper in your conversation with somebody. You share more about your background, your personal life, whatever that is, but to solidify your interest in one another. And so our hope is that's when we solidify this kind of brand loyalty. And thankfully, a lot of people in Columbus, which is by far the most gracious place I've ever been, love telling the story about our business and the work we do. For many of them, after they learn of our strategy for employment, then we become, a party conversation, that it's something bigger than just chicken. And that, I think, is really compelling.
What do you see in you're making chicken.
Yep.
I think a lot of what you're doing is focusing on the human resources model. While it may not be top of mind for those that come through your line, what else do you see in the marketplace in human resources at large, or Columbus specifically, that could be fixed?
Yeah. The moment you stop thinking about this as a poverty problem or a social service problem, the reality is we've relied on those solutions, conventional poverty elimination, alleviation solutions, for so long, and the soup line keeps getting longer. And so the reality is we have to think differently about how we tackle it. And here we are proving in our own small way, and there's John Rush proving in his own small way, that supportive, effective employment for people that have negative credentials can be a really effective tool to get people back onto the payrolls and off of the other roles they've played in the community. And so there are huge industries: construction, hospitality, food service, call centers, financial services, others. Not all of these line up perfectly, but there's probably 100 to 200,000 jobs in Columbus at any given point that could be filled effectively by a retainable, reliable workforce. And employers are spending just a boatload of money trying to solve the problem. And I think we're solving it. I think John's solving it,
That's fantastic.
Yeah. There you go.
What's next for Hot Chicken Takeover? What's next for you? Is there an end, as an entrepreneur, is there an exit strategy, or is it grow this business? What's next?
We're not even 2 years old yet. Our second anniversary will be April of 16. And so April 6th, if anybody's marking their Google calendars. And so for us, we still have a really long runway for the food business. So I'll speak about that for just a sec. Hot Chicken as a food business is still an experiment. It's by no means a prototype yet. We are on the second floor of the North Market, this unique space that nobody's been really effective at doing anything with for the last decade. And it's working well for us, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a lunch, dinner, 7-day-a-week restaurant in Grandview or Gahanna or Dublin or Old Town East. It's just a different model. So for us, we have to prove that secondary model. So that's immediately what's next for us, and the goal is to prove that, in 2016, one way or another, and we're on track to do that. From the HR perspective, I'm not sure what that growth model looks like. I'm going to keep advocating to other employers and sharing my time and sharing the time of Hot Chicken to keep raising the dialogue of that conversation. in hopes that other employers will bite, maybe out of just sheer economic pain that they can't keep warm bodies in their seats, and that we have an opportunity to figure out what that model looks like on a bigger level. I would love to take over a couple warehouses and staff them with a whole bunch of people that are going to work harder than anybody else they've ever hired.
Tom, as a last point, you grew up here primarily. You spent some time in other places in the Midwest. You also spent a lot of time in New York City. You are here, and you choose to be here. Why?
Having been on this adventure for 8 to 10 years of just trying to do something, so Hot Chicken is on the heels of 6 years of just, failing fast or not failing so fast. And there's no other place that I've experienced the kind of generosity and graciousness of just hearing people's ideas out and rallying resources around them. And that's an asset that Columbus has that not a lot of places have. And so when I had kind of a foot here and a foot perhaps in New York when I met Lisa, my now wife, and we had to make a decision at some point. And it came down to the fact that, if we're thinking long term that one of these ludicrous ideas I have works, the likelihood that it's going to work is so much greater coming to a place in Columbus where, FYI, we can also still afford a house and maybe a car or something like that, which helps too. But I couldn't imagine another place to be, and am consistently trying to draw my friends and other entrepreneurs I know into this market to do great work.
Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you.